Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And in this episode, I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Neal Morse, who's got a new album out. It's Neal Morse and the Resonance, No Hill for a Climber. I believe it comes out on November the 14th. Is that right, Neal? Ish?
I think it's November 8th.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that because, it's an album of mine that's coming out. So I should know it. But
Yes.
I even more know it because it's the first day of Morse Fest in the US. So
Yes. Yes, because you're
kind
going on
of,
tour soon as
yeah.
well, aren't you?
Yeah. Kind of a lot going on that day.
Well, just before my first question, I've been a
Yes.
fan. I've been a fan since the first Transatlantic album, and the track that resonated with me and has taken me through a journey with your music was "We All Need Some Light," and
Ah,
and I feel that this album is a continuation of that for me personally. With when every time I turn on the news, it's so dark and it's so there's it just feels like there's chaos out there. This album, which I've obviously only streamed so far because it's not out officially yet, it's just so uplifting. It's like a cathedral for the spirit. It's just so uplifting. I just wanted to say that before I ask any questions. It's just beautiful.
well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's what we try to do. We want to, that's the way we all feel about good music too. When we hear a great piece, or a bunch of us in the Resonance band went to hear the Firebird Suite being played at the Symphony Hall.
Yeah, Stravinsky. Yeah,
Uh, yeah, a few weeks ago, and we all felt that way. Just like wow, so uplifted by the music.
because this album was the title was it inspired by a line from the book Demon Copperhead? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I was reading that novel
Yeah,
last at the early part of this year. It's not really the song, or the the really long song "No Hill for a Climber"
yeah.
isn't based on the novel. There was just a line in that book that
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 triggered it.
jumped out at just jumped out at me, and then I kept reading, and she said it again. She used that line, I think, twice
Yeah.
towards the end of the book. I was about finished. I was pretty close to the end, pretty close to the edge, and yeah, so yeah, it just jumped out at me. I was on a flight to Colorado Springs to see my daughter, who's sitting here,
Yeah.
and she and her husband were living in Colorado Springs at the time, and we were headed out there. And I was reading that book, and we had just gotten back together uh, for our initial exploratory writing and jamming sessions with the Resonance guys,
Yeah.
and so that my wheels were turning about what kind of album this was going to be, and I was thinking about you know pieces of music that would be good for it. And when I read that line and I started to sing it to myself, I so I would not disturb the people next to me in the
Yeah.
airplane.
Yeah.
I got up and I was walking the aisles, and I was singing "No Hill for a Climber." And then the talking comes in. There's going to be some turbulence up ahead, or
Yeah.
whatever. You can hear it on the voice memo. But yeah, so I had the idea for the chorus and more than that, because I remember sitting back down and beginning to read the book, and then I started to hear the theme that comes after it, which is one of my favorite themes on the album. The ba ya dun 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 ya da 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 da. I really started to hear the orchestra and the whole thing. Um, so I kept walking up and down the aisles, and my wife asked me later, because she was sitting with the
Yeah.
children in a different row. She asked me, "What was going on with you on the flight? What are you losing your mind? What's going on?" But yeah, a lot of stuff started coming, and yeah. Anyway, No Hill. That was how the whole No Hill for a Climber started, and then it became this amazing journey with Chris Riley putting in that middle section and Burn It Down, and it kept just getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, because it's nearly 30 minutes, isn't it? It's nearly 30 minutes. Let's just say that. Yeah, it's
I
nearly,
think
yeah.
28, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
28.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't
Something
get,
like that. And
yeah, not
28 and change.
exactly. There's not much change out of 30. But I love the way that track, which has very much an Eastern feel when it starts, doesn't it? It's, the kind of, that feels like that to me, almost like a jazz rock feel when it emerges out of the speakers for the first time.
Yeah, I think that was the influence of one of the things that we kicked around as a team, as a group. There was a little riff that Chris Riley brought in that I think was quite different, but anyway, wound up being da do da dee da da
Yeah, yeah,
da
yeah.
dee da 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 da, and that that because of those intervals and the way that the approach to that, it definitely has a kind of Middle Eastern feel to it.
But it's when you create a piece of music that's this long, and there's so many different flavors to it, it feels very cinematic to me. It feels like I'm being taken on a journey, through it. And what's the kind of lyrically? It's also really interesting as well. It's to me, I picked up. It was about doubt. It was about doubt, finding faith, or there's a lot going on in it, almost like a battle. Some
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. You're talking about specifically No Hill for a Climber?
Yeah, that particular track. 'Cause
Yeah,
it was like as if you're someone. It's about the person who's following their ego rather than and losing their way, and then
yeah,
finding.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that sounds about right. Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, some of Chris's lyrics for the "Burn It Down" thing are really interesting and heavy. What does he say? Uh, he says something about the ego that's really interesting. I can't get it in my mind right now, but some of the lyrics in that are just like really intense. Um, yeah, I mean, I think most of these, I think every epic, the Prog epic that I've ever been involved in is it's in some way, and all the way back to the first Spock's Beard album, a piece like The Water or something,
yeah.
they're all spiritual journeys in some way. And I think most really good, long prog pieces are. It just lends itself. It's not the kind of music that lends itself to, how much I love my baby or, whatever. It just doesn't. It wouldn't be appropriate to that.
That well,
So yeah,
yeah, they like it's like as if you're driving around with it. It's like the soundtrack to what you're doing. It's the soundtrack to whatever landscape you're in. That's because it's not 3 minutes. It's not just a simple love song. It's more than, I suppose what I'm trying to say. It's almost like more than music because it attaches itself to you on so many different levels. Once you have a piece of music that's long like this, there's so many. Each time you go past it or it comes past you, you pick up different things from it that you didn't hear the last time you visited it.
oh well, that's great. That's what we definitely hope for when we're creating these things. You want to create art that has depth to it and takes people to different places. One thing I really like about writing this kind of these kinds of pieces is being able to go into, like, it isn't all light. It's because it would be maybe a bit dull if it was all light, or all darkness. It's like light and dark and
Yeah,
different spaces in between, and kind of you're trying to, we're, as composers, we're trying to take people into these different spaces, and but always in the end, you want to be in the realm of heaven. That's what I always go for, because it just feels like the most natural thing. And even all my favorite prog pieces from Yes and Genesis, and usually, they generally will bring me there in their own way as well.
Yeah, because I mentioned in the title track about, was it about, ego and stuff. One song that definitely seems to be about that is the third track in, which is All the Rage, which is very, again, very uplifting song. But is this one about someone who's kind of like, he's just so focused on their ego and being all the rage and being really popular. There's a line that says, "We'll never fill the God-shaped hole in you." Is this about? Is this about someone finding themselves who's lost?
Well, I suppose, it's sometimes a song falls out or comes about because something comes out of your mouth. When I was just sort of kicking around different choruses, I had the beginning thing and, sort of a sketch of the verses. And when I got to the chorus of that song, I just thought, and I was trying different things, and I just went, and you're all the rage. I was, oh, that's cool. But you won't turn the page, just trying things.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, how is that going to make sense? Like, what does that want to say? What does the song want to be if that's the chorus? And so the whole lyric became about, someone who's a big star, and they think that that's going to fulfill them. But of course, as we know, it won't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, actually, I know I've read that one of your favorite songs is the song called Thief, the one that starts with that almost walking bass line and very kind of restrained vocal. What is it about this one that has made it a kind of highlight for you?
Well, it's so different.
That's true.
I love that it, through the different things that everyone added to it, it came out just a lot better than I thought it was going to. It always surprises me somehow, and I feel like it goes through so many spaces so quickly.
It does,
and yet it kind of feels like it makes sense in a way. It doesn't feel real cut and pasted.
No. I mean, what was about
sometimes these things can, they can feel cut and paste and thrown together. And I just love the hip hop groove that Joe Ganzelli did on the verses. I was stuck writing it, and Chris Riley came over and helped me. He brought in the kind of middle section, the evil, intense middle section. Yeah, and I just think it's so interesting. It's just like nothing I've ever done before. I love it.
Yeah, there's some of the things. I mean, because we're only about 1 minute 20 seconds in, it's almost like that lovely Pink Floyd type guitar solo. But as you say, there's that manic middle section, and then obviously it goes back to being really soft again, and there's a race to the end. It's a great track. My favorite, though, personally, is Ever Interceding. This to me is just it's fantastic song. It's so uplifting.
Oh man, that's great.
I mean, I love the lyrics. Was it "For I was the one, like the prodigal son, we have lost all sense of meaning. For one such as I, my Lord laid down his life, and now he's ever interceding." It's a very positive, poem, song, cinematic piece. Love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that one I wrote. I didn't collaborate on that one. I wrote that one myself. Just one morning, and the interesting thing was I didn't want to lower the key, and it was much too high for me to sing. It just felt so good. I wrote it in D, but I knew I couldn't sing it. And so I just had in my mind, oh, we need to get another singer for this album.
It was this Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny came in like at the very last second. It was like we were supposed to deliver the album to be mixed May 15th. And I think I met him like around April 30th. It was the first time I met him. And then he sang some high notes for me. Well, oh, that sounds good. Why don't we try it next week? And so he came over like in the first week of May and recorded all his vocals in 2 days. And it's just, I think he sounds so great on Ever Interceding. It's just, to me, it's nothing short of a miracle. It's wonderful.
Well, me and my wife Sue were listening to it yesterday. I was making notes for this interview, and we were just saying the vocals. I mean, overall on the whole album, especially obviously the title track, but on this one for us,
yeah,
the vocals are just immense. But they're just it's so moving and so well put together, and the way that Johnny interprets your words, so that they're actually coming from his heart. So I can't imagine if you were able to reach those notes, it wouldn't have been any different than him singing it. It sounds like his words as he sings it. It's brilliant.
Oh yeah, it was really really a joy to sit in the producer's chair and listen to him and talk to him about it and kind of try to get the best performance. And we worked together on it really well, and we had just met.
Yeah. So the one I haven't mentioned, which is what the one actually opens with, this Eternity in Your Eyes, which is the other epic, which is about 22 minutes long. Is it 21 minutes, I think? And this is classic you, isn't it? Everything's in there. It sounds like the sun coming up over the landscape for a few moments at the beginning, and then boom, we're in with, classic kind of prog, all sorts of time changes, all sorts of emotions flying everywhere. And there's a lovely part that halfway through, and there's like that kind of question and answer thing with the keyboards playing a solo, the guitar is playing a solo as it moves from one. It's just so much going on in here. When you write a piece of music like this, Neal, how much of it is already formulated in your head, or as you start to put down each section, do you kind of have different bits that you've thought about over time and you think, oh, that'll be useful, I'll bring that in here, or I remember I did that a few months ago? How much is there when you in advance?
Well, it depends. On the Eternity in Your Eyes, there's quite a bit that was from the other guys. There was the very beginning orchestral section was written by Andre. Then the two sections that Chris Riley is singing were written by him. The Northern Lights section, and then the Hammer and Nail section were written by Chris. One thing that was interesting about that was we were working on the album, and Philip Martin, the drummer, was kind of called away by Steve Morse to go drum tech for Steve. Yeah. And so they were doing the Dixie Dregs Steve Morse band tour.
Yeah.
And so we were without a drummer for some weeks, and I'd already promised the label that we would deliver at this particular time, and wanted to keep that promise. So I was like, I wonder what God has in mind now. And Andre said, hey, my friend Joe from Washington, D.C., he's a great drummer, and he'd probably fly down here and try it if you want to try him out. I'm like, okay. So I sent Joe just what I had at that time, which I think was just click and MIDI piano. I think I had just a sketch without the orchestral beginning, or I don't know how much of Chris Riley's stuff was already in there. And Joe came and played drums on it, and then we kind of fleshed it out some more. And then I went to the mountains for a few days, and I was listening to it. And it used to be that Northern Lights and Hammer and Nail went right up to one. And as I listened, I thought, that's kind of odd to have Chris Riley is singing these two songs so close together. I felt like it would be better if there was something separating them. Anyway, I got the idea for that middle jam thing with the wah-wah guitar solo.
Yeah.
And I sketched that out, with just MIDI drums, and when I was in the mountains. And then when I came back, I run it by the guys. But now Joe's gone back to DC, and now by this time, Philip has come home. And so Philip's playing the drums on the middle jam where Joe is playing the whole rest of the piece. It's kind of a trip. You got like two different drummers playing in the same song. Like in Thief, some of the edits are right in the middle of a section. Like the first section's Joe and the next section's Philip, and you can't tell because they're playing the same kit. They're playing the kit that I have in my studio,
Wow.
with the same microphones in the same room, but still, it's pretty amazing that I've never done an album quite like that in that way.
It's an amazing album, as I said a few moments ago, and it feels like it is like a journey for the senses, because it's beyond just sound to me, because it's the lyrics, so it's how it makes you feel inside, etc. I recently spoke to Steve Hackett, and we were talking about how music is like a healing power, without just the sense of it. I mean, faith has been central to your music for a very long time. I know it goes back to when your daughter being healed in church, and that's where it was a trigger. But was faith part of your musical story before that, or was that literally the spark that sent you on this path?
Well, I think I was always, when I listened to music that I wrote very long ago, I can hear a searching. I can hear an aching in a lot of it. I can hear a longing. I think you can kind of hear that on the Spock's albums more and more, until like the Snow album is like, pretty direct, like love will be your ministry and other things that are said on that album. Love beyond words and open wide the floodgates, and many of these things are really I'm singing about the Holy Spirit, because, well, as the scripture says, out of the heart the mouth speaks, right? So whatever's in your heart's going to come out. And so if you have, if you're starting to receive the love of God, it should come out in your music. And of course it has in mine. And the more and more I focus on that, and I don't on everything, like I do make singer-songwriter albums, where I just sing about how much I love my wife, or, there's a sort of silly song about my dog, I mean, it's not like every conversation you have has to be like a really deep conversation about God. But it seems like if you're doing progressive rock and you're writing these epic things, it just feels right to be talking about the biggest, epic, deepest things that you can sing about. So I'm just glad that other people can relate to it.
That's a really good point, isn't it? Because a lot of like the classic prog albums, the classic ones, the like Lamb Lies Down and Fragile, they were almost, and this the title track from this album, we think about them playing on big stages, but they can be. I almost thought when I was listening to this, it could be played in a giant cathedral. It's that kind of a huge amplification of the art itself beyond the music, if you know what I mean.
There's some big moments. There are like, that moment where Johnny, and I have, of course, you can hear the influence of John Anderson, and in some of these moments, like that moment in No Hill where all is love is all.
Yeah.
I kept stretching that. I kept splicing that and moving it later because it wasn't long of. We really milked that, I think. But I mean, it deserves milking. It's a beautiful moment, I think.
Yeah. So how do you know when you're done, when you're finished? Because with this kind of music and with the way that you internally visualize it, you must be thinking, well, we could put more layers on here. Maybe we should get strings in. Maybe we could, how do you draw the line and go, we're done, we're finished, no more?
Well, that's a really good question. I like I asked that of Royna Stolt, and I did this master class
Yeah.
recording thing over the summer, and Royna was a guest, and I asked him that question. He said, "Well, I think when I can listen to it and nothing really, really bothers me, when you can listen down and you feel like, okay, nothing's really bothering me," and then you ask the other guys, like,
Yeah.
or your collaborators, whoever that might be, but sometimes it's just friends. I'll send stuff to friends and go, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Do you hear anything? Am I missing anything? you
Yeah.
know? So I think that's a good definition.
Because it would, I mean, so talking about adding strings, of course, at No Hell for a Climb at the very end, a string quartet appears, doesn't it?
Oh yes, and a horn section,
Yeah.
which was actually Andre's idea. He's like, "Oh, at the end, you got to do that theme like super slow," because he's a classical music fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way like in the Firebird, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
boom, boom, dum, 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 so
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was like, "Oh yeah, we need to do that really slow." Ba, ba, ba. In fact, I had Rich slow the tape down, even make it even slower than it was during that part, because it just never seemed quite slow enough.
And so the album's out on the 8th of November. Is it coming out on a vinyl CD? I think there's probably a deluxe version as well. Is there all sorts of
Yeah.
versions?
There's not that many, not as many as some other albums I've been involved with. Yeah, there's the single CD version, and then there's a special edition with two CDs. The second CD is an instrumental version of the album,
Oh,
and
wow.
expanded
Yeah.
art. Yeah, and expanded artwork. Uh, that was me opening up it's more
Yeah.
deluxe artwork. And then there's a vinyl version we have the exclusive color of cobalt blue, which is very nice. So it's a double vinyl set, and yeah, we have it. We're shipping them now, so we're really excited about it.
Brilliant. And if people want to find
Maybe I shouldn't say that. We're shipping them really soon.
very soon. But yes. And if people want to pre-order, so that you do ship them soon, it's nealmorse.com, isn't it? Is the best place to go to find out more about what you. Yeah.
That's the easiest. Yeah, Neal with an A.
Neal with an A. That's right.
Yeah.
And you've also got a few gigs coming up in November.
Yeah. We're doing Morse Fest US. We're doing both the Joseph albums, Joseph the Dreamer and the Restoration, with Nick DiVirgilio, Ross Jennings from Haken. It was Ted Leonard, but Ted had a health emergency, and just yesterday or 2 days ago told me he couldn't do it. And I found a replacement in Johnny Basaha from the Resonance Band. So we're also doing highlights from Jesus Christ the Exorcist, and the first trio gig with Ross and Nick. And I think it's going to be amazing. Eric Gillette's playing drums and guitar. So you get to hear Nick DiVirgilio on the drums and Eric Gillette on guitar for some parts of this show. We're also live streaming the USA show. All this, you can find all this stuff on nealmorse.com.
And there's a gig in the UK, January the 17th and 18th, and that's in a church.
Yes, that's in a church, and it's a lovely venue. It's not when you get inside, you'll go, oh, it's not like super churchy. It's nothing wrong with churches, but I think some people are put off by that. But don't be. You'll love it. It's a really good concert venue.
Yeah, but won't some of your songs though just sound at home there though? I mean, especially if you do Ever Interceding. Well, I mean,
yeah,
that is in the set, isn't it? That will be in the set, won't it?
Oh, well, not
necessarily.
London, not this one. Maybe next year.
Yeah. No, well,
maybe we will. My son Will be there. Will could sing it.
Oh yeah, because it's a high. Yeah,
maybe I'll do it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it at the Inner Circle concert.
Yeah,
but only if you come.
Okay. That's fine. Well, thank you so much, Neal, for all of your time today. It's been great talking to you, and I can't wait to get a physical copy of the album. I absolutely love it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been lovely talking to you as well.
As yours. Well, take care, and hopefully we'll talk together another time as well. Thank you.
All right. You have a good one.
And
See
you.
y'all later.
Bye bye. So, a huge thank you to my guest, Neal Morse. That was absolutely wonderful talking to Neal. I've got so many of his albums and so many different bands, and so many people have guested on his music and stuff. But this album, No Hill for a Climber, to me is one of his best, without doubt. There is so much to explore here. And what I like about when you have a track that I said it's about half an hour long, and as Neal said, no, it's not. It's about 29. So there's not much change out of 30 minutes. But there is so many different dimensions and things going on that it is the kind of music that you, each time you listen to it, something new surfaces, or you notice something else. And a bit like the reason why I feel a lot of the classic prog albums like Lamb Lies Down, Genesis, or Yes, Fragile, Close to the Edge, they're just timeless. And to me, this is one of those albums. But also, I put down in my notes, I didn't mention all this, I was talking to Neal, but this to me is the kind of music that I really like to listen to. If I turn on the news, and so many people saying this now, it's just so dark and it's not uplifting. But this music, this is the kind of music I want to listen to. I want to listen to music that makes me feel good inside, that makes me feel inspired. It makes me feel that there's hope and there's good stuff going on in the world as well. And this is an album that does all of those things. There's some great tracks on here. There isn't one bad track. Obviously, I have my favorite, as I mentioned, but just get this, listen to it, stream it, but then buy a CD or a vinyl version or the deluxe version. And if you're a fan of Neal Morse and the music and you love what he does, you are going to absolutely adore this. So thank you for listening, and thank you for watching, and thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your support. Check out the website at nowspinning.co.uk. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can become a patron. You can buy a Now Spinning magazine t-shirt. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Please take care. Keep spinning those discs, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.